Humanity had always been underestimated, the galaxy treating us like a backwater world unworthy of notice, a curious anomaly with no real influence beyond its small blue planet. And for decades alien fleets patrolled near Earth's solar system with smug confidence, convinced that if humans had survived this long, it was due to luck rather than skill. Yet beneath that surface of ordinary life, humanity had been quietly advancing, building technologies that defied expectations, cultivating strategies and resilience that no other civilization had considered necessary, and when the first miscalculation occurred, it seemed almost laughably minor. A single alien scouting vessel, overconfident and careless, underestimated the sensors and automated defenses humans had perfected over decades of quiet development, approaching the planet with arrogance, certain it could observe Earth without consequence. Yet within minutes the vessel found itself ensnared in a containment field so subtle and precise that its alien crew had no immediate way to understand the anomaly, and by the time warnings were issued across the nearby star systems, humanity's response had already begun to unfold, coordinated with military precision and scientific foresight, harnessing not just weaponry but the deep knowledge of orbital mechanics, energy manipulation, and cybernetic integration that made human technology appear alien even to those who had once considered themselves centuries ahead. And as the containment field held the intruder, Earth's orbital defenses activated, deploying countermeasures that were simultaneously lethal and non-lethal, disabling propulsion and communications while preserving the vessel for study, sending a clear message that humanity was not merely reacting but orchestrating, demonstrating mastery over both offense and defense in ways that confounded galactic observers. And as the alien fleet nearest to the solar system received reports of the incident, panic rippled through their command structures, for intelligence had long underestimated the adaptability, creativity, and ruthlessness inherent in human response, and across diplomatic channels the galaxy's most powerful species debated whether this was a fluke, a highly advanced defense automated without human oversight, or the terrifying emergence of a civilization whose true capabilities had been hidden intentionally for centuries, while on Earth, human leaders coordinated with engineers, scientists, and fleet commanders, ensuring that every action taken projected strength without unnecessary escalation, showing the galaxy that humanity's restraint had been deliberate, that patience had been a weapon in itself, and that the so-called miscalculation of a single scout vessel was only the first step in a series of demonstrations that would rewrite every assumption the interstellar powers held about the human race. And as communications between species attempted to gauge intent, humanity's narrative unfolded with clarity, not arrogance but authority, conveying a singular truth, that the invaders' misjudgment of human ingenuity will be their undoing, that every plan they had made based on perceived weakness was now vulnerable to countermeasures conceived not in panic but in disciplined foresight, and as Earth's fleet, long underestimated and quietly expanding in both reach and sophistication, prepared to project force beyond the solar system, the galaxy began to witness a fundamental shift in the balance of power, one in which humans, driven not by conquest but by the instinct to protect their world and the weakest civilizations around them, were proving that a single miscalculation had triggered a chain reaction capable of dismantling empires, erasing assumptions, and forcing every species to recognize that the era of underestimating humanity was over. That from patience and preparation had emerged a response so calculated, so overwhelmingly competent, that even the most confident alien commanders began to reconsider every engagement, every strategy, every belief in their superiority. And by the time the first wave of human expeditions left the solar system, guided by unparalleled navigation and propulsion technology, the galaxy had begun to understand that humanity's strength was not measured solely by its weapons or ships but by its ability to learn, adapt, and turn every perceived weakness into a decisive advantage. And the first miscalculation would be remembered across centuries as a moment the galaxy realized that humans were not to be underestimated, that every action by the invaders had been a setup for humanity's calculated retaliation, and that the tide of interstellar conflict had irrevocably shifted in favor of those who had been dismissed as insignificant, a tide that would continue to rise with every demonstration of human ingenuity, resilience, and uncompromising determination to turn every threat into an opportunity. And as alien command centers scrambled to respond, it became increasingly clear that this single error, born of arrogance and underestimation, would lead to a reckoning whose consequences would echo across the stars, leaving no doubt that humanity had arrived, fully capable of reshaping the balance of power in ways no other civilization could have foreseen. and that from this point forward, the galaxy would measure its decisions with a new respect for the species it had once deemed harmless. As the stunned alien fleet scrambled to comprehend humanity's sudden display of mastery, Earth's command centers moved with deliberate efficiency, every decision weighed against centuries of strategic planning and historical insight into the nature of conflict and diplomacy. And while the galaxy's rulers panicked, humans had already begun mapping the vulnerabilities of nearby star systems, analyzing alien supply lines, communication arrays, and fleet formations with a precision that made centuries of alien experience appear naive, for humans had developed a philosophy that combined foresight with adaptability, leveraging unpredictability as a weapon, and using every technological advantage to amplify natural ingenuity. And as Scout returned with data, Earth's leaders coordinated strikes designed not just to defend but to demonstrate capability, deploying probes that could disable propulsion systems, interfere with sensors, and neutralize offensive measures without unnecessary casualties, sending messages across the void that humanity's aim was measured, deliberate, and inescapably effective. And in distant council chambers, alien diplomats and commanders argued endlessly, some advocating restraint, believing this to be a fluke or a test, others demanding immediate counterattacks. But every proposal was undermined by the realization that humans anticipated a response before it was even conceived, that their strategies were laid, adaptive, and seemingly omniscient. And as Earth's fleet prepared to move beyond the confines of the solar system, the first targeted interventions began, not with fire but with disruption, isolating alien ships, severing communications, and demonstrating that humans could manipulate environments, energy flows, and orbital dynamics in ways that made advanced alien tactics obsolete. While on the planets they had once assumed to be remote and defenseless, humans were establishing forward observation posts, fortifying positions, and coordinating with allied or neutral species, demonstrating that humanity's reach was both defensive and protective, and that the miscalculation of a single scout vessel had now escalated into a strategic campaign whose depth and foresight no alien power could match. And across the galaxy, intelligence networks began circulating reports of humanity's efficiency, adaptability, and ruthlessness, causing hesitation in the ranks, uncertainty in strategy, and doubt in command. For humans had turned restraint into a weapon, patience into leverage, and the very act of observing and understanding enemy systems became a tool of unparalleled power. And as alien admirals attempted to regroup, they found that every offensive maneuver was anticipated, countered, or rendered irrelevant by human ingenuity, and Earth's fleet, advancing steadily and silently, presented a paradoxical combination of threat and restraint, showing that humans were willing to act decisively when necessary, but always with precision, purpose, and the capacity to adapt. While back on Earth, civilians contributed to the war effort not just through technology but through problem-solving, innovation, and ingenuity that blurred the line between military and civilian, showing that the entirety of human society could be mobilized in a way that multiplied effectiveness exponentially. And as the first wave of forward operations engaged with alien outposts and defensive grids, humans demonstrated coordination, ingenuity, and ethical judgment that left even neutral observers in awe. And by the time news of the initial engagements reached the furthest councils, it became undeniable. A single miscalculation, born of hubris and underestimation, had triggered a response so comprehensive, so perfectly executed, that every assumption about humanity's weakness had been obliterated, leaving alien leaders scrambling to comprehend the magnitude of the error, the depth of human capability, and the certainty that the tide had irreversibly shifted. And as humans continued to extend their influence, protect the vulnerable, and dismantle threats with surgical precision, the galaxy learned a stark, inescapable truth. Humanity did not merely react. They controlled the narrative of conflict, dictated the terms of engagement, and transformed underestimation into a weapon, proving that the miscalculation that had begun as a small error would ultimately redefine the balance of power across the stars, ensuring that from this moment onward, every alien species would think twice before challenging a civilization that had mastered patience, ingenuity, adaptability, and the power to turn every threat into opportunity, and that the full scope of human capability was only beginning to reveal itself as the tide turned irrevocably in their favor, marking the dawn of an era where the galaxy would come to recognize that humanity had arrived not as an underdog but as a decisive, calculating force that could not be ignored, dismissed, or defeated. Humanity's advance beyond the solar system was met with disbelief and fear, as alien empires scrambled to interpret the unprecedented tactics, strategies, and technologies being employed. Yet humans moved with calm efficiency, integrating information from sensors, scouts, and captured alien technology to create a comprehensive understanding of the galactic theater. And as the first coordinated operations reached contested systems, it became apparent that every maneuver had been anticipated, every potential obstacle studied and prepared for, and every action carried a weight of calculated consequence, with humans using stealth, diversion, and precision strikes to neutralize threats before they could respond effectively, while simultaneously offering protection and aid to species that had long suffered under alien dominion, establishing a reputation not only for power but for honor, strategy, and moral clarity that contrasted sharply with the fear and chaos spreading among the invaders. And on distant command bridges, alien officers could only watch in mounting horror as humans dismantled defenses, intercepted communications, and forced rapid recalculations that exposed the weaknesses of centuries-old military doctrines, revealing that the so-called underdeveloped species had mastered coordination, adaptation, and strategic innovation to an extent unmatched by any other civilization. And while fleets regrouped in panic, humans exploited every opportunity, using wormhole mapping, advanced propulsion systems, and predictive algorithms to strike with unmatched timing, ensuring that each encounter favored them not through sheer numbers but through superior understanding of physics, strategy, and psychology. And as the first major confrontation erupted near a critical supply node, humans executed maneuvers so unexpected that alien commanders initially assumed internal sabotage, failing to recognize that humans had simply anticipated every move, blending deception, feints, and multi-layered attacks into a sequence that neutralized the node without unnecessary destruction, proving that humanity valued efficiency and control over brute force alone. And as reports of these operations spread, the psychological impact was profound. For alien civilizations had long relied on intimidation, reputation, and scale to maintain dominance, only to discover that humans did not respond to fear but to information, logic, and strategy, converting potential threats into controlled outcomes and asserting dominance without reckless aggression. And on Earth, leaders monitored each engagement in real time, coordinating with field commanders, scientists, and intelligence analysts to adapt tactics instantly, refining strategies with every encounter, and incorporating lessons learned from alien behavior into the next wave of operations. While engineers and innovators developed countermeasures for every conceivable alien technology, ensuring that humanity remained a step ahead at all times. And as the first alien retreat occurred, it became clear that the initial miscalculation, the failure to recognize human capability, had precipitated a cascade of errors across entire fleets and systems, with alien admirals now questioning every assumption, fearing that any engagement could trigger decisive human action. And across the galaxy, whispers of humanity's prowess began to spread, creating doubt, hesitation, and internal strife among the invaders, as species that had once considered humans insignificant now struggled to reassess their strategies, alliances, and priorities, while humans continued to expand influence, protect allies, and secure key positions with a combination of diplomacy, technological superiority, and tactical brilliance, demonstrating that the strength of humanity lay not merely in weaponry but in foresight, adaptability, and the ability to unite a civilization around purpose, ingenuity, and moral clarity. And as alien forces attempted desperate maneuvers to halt the advance, humans responded with solutions that were simultaneously precise, innovative, and psychologically devastating, showing that patience, preparation, and understanding of opponent behavior could achieve what raw power could not. And by the time the first interstellar councils convened to discuss the human threat, it was undeniable that a single miscalculation, the underestimation of Earth, had triggered a sequence of events so powerful that it would redefine intergalactic politics, strategy, and perception, cementing humanity's place not as a minor species but as a force whose reach, intellect, and adaptability demanded recognition, respect, and caution, and that the tide had not only turned but surged forward with unstoppable momentum, proving that every alien who had ever doubted humanity had done so at their own peril, and that the galaxy's understanding of power, resilience, and strategy would never be the same. As humanity pushed deeper into contested space, the galaxy's reaction grew more chaotic, alien governments and militaries struggling to coordinate responses to a species they had long dismissed, while humans advanced with disciplined coordination, merging intelligence gathering, rapid deployment, and adaptive tactics into a single seamless operation, and every encounter with hostile forces revealed the same pattern. Aliens assumed advantage, humans anticipated, humans adapted, and humans executed, transforming every offensive action into a controlled outcome that minimized risk while maximizing strategic impact. And across countless star systems, humans demonstrated mastery over logistics, energy manipulation, and battlefield awareness, turning the very environment of space into an ally, using gravitational fields, asteroid belts, and nebulae to obscure movement, trap enemy vessels, and deliver precise strikes, while simultaneously protecting civilian and allied populations from harm, proving that humanity's strength was as much moral as it was technological. And as alien commanders attempted coordinated counterattacks, humans intercepted, outmaneuvered, and neutralized their efforts, often before the first orders could even be given, forcing alien admirals to recognize that no traditional fleet formation or strategy could withstand human ingenuity. And on board command vessels, alien officers argued endlessly, divided between those who owed surrender or retreat, and those who clung to pride and hubris, while humans maintained relentless focus, assessing every variable, predicting every reaction, and turning each potential weakness into an advantage. And even when faced with numerical superiority, humans avoided reckless engagement, instead orchestrating precise strikes that disrupted supply lines, communications, and command structures, leaving entire fleets paralyzed without significant casualties. And as the first coordinated liberation of occupied systems began, alien populations witnessed humans not as conquerors but as protectors, using advanced technology to disable weapons, restore infrastructure, and safeguard innocence. And the narrative of human capability spread across the galaxy, challenging assumptions, sowing doubt, and forcing even neutral civilizations to reconsider their alliances. For humans combined the patience of centuries with the ruthlessness of necessity, demonstrating that every engagement was informed, every action purposeful, and every decision calculated to achieve maximum impact. And in distant diplomatic hubs, alien envoys debated the implications of humanity's advance, questioning whether the species' restraint had been deliberate, a tool to lull the galaxy into false confidence, and whether their patience would ultimately be matched by unstoppable force. And as humans engaged in multi-system operations, employing advanced AI coordination, propulsion, and energy-based technologies, it became apparent that no alien strategy had accounted for the human ability to learn, adapt, and evolve tactics in real time, converting mistakes into advantages and predicting countermeasures with astonishing accuracy. And across the galaxy, once feared empires began to fracture internally, morale collapsing as commanders realized that they had underestimated not just technological sophistication but the discipline, ingenuity, and moral clarity that defined humanity. And as forward fleets established dominance in strategic regions, humans demonstrated that their reach extended beyond force alone, integrating diplomacy, alliance building, and protective measures to consolidate gains and inspire loyalty, proving that the true power of humanity lay in its unity, foresight, and ability to project influence without unnecessary aggression. And by the time the first major alien bastion was neutralized, it was clear that the initial miscalculation, a minor act of arrogance toward Earth, had triggered a cascade that would redefine interstellar power, and that every species, regardless of past assumptions, would now be forced to acknowledge that humans were not to be underestimated, that patience, preparation, and innovation could yield supremacy as absolute as it was inevitable, and that the tide, once set in motion by a single error, would continue to sweep across the galaxy, establishing humanity not merely as a contender but as a decisive force whose strategies, moral authority, and unrelenting adaptability ensured that the era of underestimation was over forever. Humanity's influence continued to expand with relentless precision, as every system they approached became a demonstration of strategy, technology, and ethical authority combined. And while alien fleets struggled to regroup, humans orchestrated multi-layered operations that simultaneously neutralized threats, protected vulnerable species, and established infrastructure to support long-term dominance, using advanced propulsion to outmaneuver blockades, energy manipulation to disable weapons before engagement, and predictive modeling to anticipate every conceivable reaction from enemies who still clung to outdated assumptions. And as battles erupted in contested regions, humans employed tactics that seemed almost instinctual, blending intelligence, intuition, and technical mastery to create outcomes that appeared miraculous to alien observers, while in command centers across the galaxy. Alien officers debated endlessly over how a species they had dismissed could achieve such consistent superiority, with some advocating surrender, some advocating diplomacy, and others stubbornly attempting countermeasures that were invariably anticipated and rendered ineffective by human foresight. And yet humans move with calm precision, exploiting every weakness, leveraging environmental conditions, and integrating civilian expertise into military planning, ensuring that every maneuver was backed by unparalleled knowledge and efficiency. And as alien propaganda attempted to mask the losses, the truth spread through communication networks. Humans were everywhere, controlling engagement terms, neutralizing threats without unnecessary destruction, and turning potential disasters into calculated victories. And in liberated systems, populations witness humans not only as protectors but as problem solvers, repairing infrastructure, re-establishing governance, and demonstrating that their technology and intelligence served life, not just war. And as alien fleets attempted desperate counteroffensives, humans anticipated attacks, redirected forces, and executed simultaneous operations across multiple sectors, leaving commanders bewildered, exhausted, and increasingly desperate, while human leaders coordinated strategy with an understanding of psychology as well as tactics, exploiting alien pride, fear, and misjudgment to guide opponents into mistakes. And in distant sectors, entire alien coalitions began to fracture, unable to adapt to a foe that combined adaptability, foresight, and moral clarity. And while humans continued to advance, they maintained a balance between overwhelming capability and restraint, proving that power was most formidable when tempered with intelligence, and that dominance could be achieved not through indiscriminate force but through calculated, precise, and morally informed action. And as the first major alien capital fleets were encircled and neutralized, it became undeniable that the galaxy's old hierarchies were crumbling, that empires once thought invincible were now paralyzed, and that humanity's patient preparation, long-hidden strength, and refusal to be underestimated had created an unstoppable momentum. And on Earth, leaders observed each engagement with meticulous attention, adjusting plans, deploying reinforcements, and refining strategy in real time, while scientists and engineers innovated solutions to emerging challenges, demonstrating that humanity's adaptability was limitless. And as the tide continued to rise, alien powers recognized that a single miscalculation, their historical underestimation of humanity, had unleashed a force they could neither predict nor resist, and that every action they had taken against Earth had been anticipated, neutralized, or transformed into advantage. And as humans solidified control over key strategic points, protected allies, and established a network of influence and support across liberated systems, it became clear that their victory was not merely tactical but systemic, reshaping interstellar politics, military strategy, and perceptions of power, and that the galaxy had entered a new era in which humanity's foresight, ingenuity, moral clarity, and relentless adaptability ensured that no species would again dismiss, underestimate, or provoke them without facing consequences of unparalleled magnitude, and that the initial era that began with a minor misjudgment would forever be remembered as the spark that ignited a human-led transformation of the galactic balance, proving that underestimation was a fatal mistake, and that humanity's tide could not be stopped, diverted, or ignored. Humanity's momentum only intensified as the galaxies struggled to respond. For every advance, every calculated strike, and every protective intervention revealed layers of capability that alien civilizations had never anticipated, and as humans extended operations into the core regions of contested space, they demonstrated mastery not just of technology but of strategy, diplomacy, and psychological influence, turning hesitation, fear, and pride against opponents who had assumed themselves unassailable. And as fleets of multiple species attempted coordinated resistance, humans anticipated the movements, countered tactics, and neutralized threats before engagement, using diversion, precision strikes, and manipulation of environmental variables to create overwhelming advantages without unnecessary casualties, while simultaneously safeguarding vulnerable populations, repairing infrastructure, and establishing systems that ensured loyalty, stability, and trust, and across command centers. Alien leaders could do nothing but observe as humans converted every misstep, miscommunication, and assumption into leverage, showcasing a combination of adaptability, foresight, and ethical judgment that rendered traditional tactics ineffective. And as humans liberated critical systems, they demonstrated a capacity to integrate intelligence from multiple species, technologies, and environments into cohesive operational strategies, outmaneuvering forces with superior coordination, predictive modeling, and an uncanny ability to identify and exploit systemic weaknesses. While alien fleets fragmented under pressure, mistrust spreading as commanders doubted each other and feared the next human maneuver, and humans maintained a relentless yet measured advance, blending offense with defense, and showing that their greatest strength lay not only in weaponry or speed, but in unity, intelligence, and the disciplined application of power. And as the first decisive battles in core star clusters unfolded, humans showcased multi-vector operations that neutralized entire enemy formations simultaneously, while alien admirals struggled to comprehend how a species previously dismissed as insignificant could coordinate such complex, effective, and morally coherent campaigns. And in liberated systems, humans established governance, restored essential services, and fostered interstellar alliances based on trust and shared protection, demonstrating that their victories were not mere domination but systemic transformation that strengthened the galaxy as a whole, while simultaneously eroding enemy morale, coherence, and confidence. And as the psychological impact of these campaigns spread, alien civilizations began questioning not just tactical approaches but long-held assumptions about humanity's capacity for innovation, adaptation, and strategic patience. Realizing too late that their initial miscalculation, the decision to dismiss Earth, had allowed a civilization to prepare, observe, and execute a response of unparalleled sophistication. And as humans pressed toward key centers of alien power, employing advanced energy manipulation, stealth deployment, and predictive coordination, it became clear that no defense, no alliance, and no preemptive strike could match the depth of preparation and foresight inherent in human operations. And across liberated and contested space, populations witnessed humans acting with precision, restraint, and moral authority, solidifying their reputation not as reckless conquerors but as decisive, intelligent, and principled actors capable of shaping the fate of entire regions. And as alien empires faltered, diplomatic channels failed, and fleets disintegrated under coordinated human pressure, the galaxy came to understand that the single miscalculation, the underestimation of humanity, had unleashed a force that could not be contained, resisted, or reversed, and that the tide humanity had begun would carry them to the very heart of interstellar power, ensuring that every civilization, every fleet, and every leader now recognized that humans were no longer the underestimated species of old, but the architect of a new galactic order, whose ingenuity, discipline, and unwavering resolve had permanently altered the balance of power, leaving the galaxy to witness the full consequences of a miscalculation they would never forget. The culmination of humanity's campaign across the galaxy was both inevitable and awe-inspiring, as every misjudgment, underestimation, and act of arrogance by alien civilizations had been meticulously transformed into leverage by humans, and as fleets once considered invincible were systematically neutralized, disrupted, or persuaded to surrender. The true magnitude of human foresight and capability became undeniable, for humans had combined strategy, innovation, morality, and adaptability into a seamless force that reshaped the very foundations of interstellar power. And as the first major capitals of alien empires fell under controlled occupation, humanity demonstrated not only military superiority but the wisdom to govern, protect, and integrate populations with dignity, restoring order where chaos had prevailed and earning loyalty through respect and protection rather than fear. And across liberated systems, humans established alliances with previously subjugated species, creating networks of cooperation, mutual defense, and technological exchange that further strengthened their position while simultaneously exposing the vulnerabilities and short-sightedness of their former oppressors. And as alien fleets attempted desperate counterattacks, humans anticipated every move, neutralizing threats with precision, efficiency, and minimal collateral damage. forcing alien commanders to acknowledge that traditional aggression, intimidation, and pride were powerless against a civilization that had perfected patience, planning, and adaptability. And within diplomatic forums, discussions shifted from negotiation to capitulation, as alien leaders recognized the futility of resistance in the face of a species whose capabilities had been concealed for centuries only to be revealed at a moment when they could no longer be ignored. And while humans advanced decisively, they maintained restraint, ensuring that their actions were justified, their intervention strategic, and their authority unquestionable, demonstrating that true power was measured not by fear or destruction, but by the ability to shape outcomes, protect the vulnerable, and preserve life while achieving objectives with clarity and efficiency. And as the final strongholds of opposing forces were neutralized or brought into alliance, humanity's dominance was firmly established, not as tyrants but as masters of strategy, diplomacy, and ethical application of power, and the galaxy collectively realized the catastrophic consequences of the original miscalculation, the underestimation of a species they had dismissed as insignificant, for humans had turned patience into planning, restraint into leverage, and ingenuity into unstoppable momentum, proving that every prior assumption about weakness, limitation, and inferiority had been false, and that the tide humanity had unleashed would continue to define the balance of power for generations. And as humans consolidated control over key regions, rebuilt war-torn systems, and forged new interstellar coalitions, the full narrative of their rise became clear. A single act of arrogance, a single misjudgment of capability, had triggered a chain of events that reshaped the galaxy, elevated humanity to prominence, and ensured that no civilization would again underestimate the ingenuity, resilience, and relentless determination of Earth's people. And as a final communication from former adversaries acknowledged both defeat and admiration, humans looked not to vengeance but to the future, establishing a lasting order in which strength was measured through knowledge, cooperation, and ethical action, and the galaxy learned a permanent lesson. Misjudging humanity was a mistake no one would repeat, for the species that had once been underestimated had turned a single error into a tide so overwhelming, so precise, and so just that it had forever altered the fate of the stars, leaving a legacy that would echo through civilizations and centuries, a legacy of ingenuity, moral clarity, and unstoppable resolve, proving once and for all that humanity's rise was not accidental, not reckless, but inevitable, a culmination of preparation, foresight, and a refusal to be dismissed, and that from this point forward, the galaxy would reckon with the undeniable truth that one miscalculation against humans was all it took to change everything, to redefine power, and to ensure that the underestimated species of old had become the decisive force shaping the universe.